So now let's look at what is it that they demand from the side of the consumers. So now from the side of the consumers, they are concerned with two things. Two things that they are concerned about. We worry about inflation and we worry about unemployment. So those are the two things that now we have to look at from the side of the demand side. Inflation and unemployment. So, before we do that, now let's look at what inflation is. You know what we're talking about when we talk about inflation. Inflation is a general increase in the price level. And remember, it must be a rapid increase over a period of time. So we're saying, okay, fine, we have a general increase in the price level, which is our inflation. But now here's the thing. How does this happen? In an economy, technology does this all the time. So we have our graph here. I'm very notorious with drawing lines. I hope I can draw the straight ones. At least here I have a ruler. So there we have. Want to see there how this happens. So on this one we have real output, and this side we have price level. To the percentage there, percentage there. Right then. So now what are we saying? Alright then. So back to business. So now look at this. If the households then, maybe there is an increase in wages, and then because of the increase in wages, we find that our disposable income increases. And when disposable income increases, we increase our expenditure. When expenditure increases, we increase our demand. So what's going to happen? You find that the demand curve will shift to the right because of the increase. There it shifts from D to D1 there. But now what is the problem? As you can see, demand has shifted to the right, but supply has remained the same. So which means the problem there that we are going to encounter is, you find that now, yes, we have spent more, we have increased our quantity, but the catch is when demand increases but supply remains the same, then you see that we are going to have an increase now in price. So you see there, then the price increases there to P1. So now to ensure that we always have lower prices and to curb inflation in our economy, what is required? The requirement is when demand shifts to the right, also supply must shift. So there is our supply. So our supply also will also shift to the right. So when that happens, you see that the prices remain the same, even though the quantity demanded might increase. Because the most important thing as consumers that we are concerned about is that we must make sure that the price level remains the same regardless of the quantity demanded in the economy. So when you look at this, then that is what they are trying to tell us there under inflation. So the solution there is to make sure that when demand increases, supply must also increase. So from the demand side, we're saying when demand moves, we must always make sure that supply is flexible. So now let's look at this in practical words. So what did we say then? We said, just a little bit higher. Okay. So now on the graph there, what did you see? You see that aggregate demand and aggregate supply are at a equilibrium. Oh no. So aggregate demand and aggregate supply are at equilibrium. Where is that? You see, when we're drawing the first one, which is when curve D and S, where they are, this is equilibrium A, then they are at equilibrium. This is at point A. Now let's see, this is B, this is C. All right then. So now what happens? If aggregate demand increases without an increase in aggregate supply, what's going to happen? There we saw what happened. When aggregate demand shifted to the right from D to D1, there was no increase in supply. So what is going to happen now in the economy? So you'll find that now aggregate demand has increased without an increase in aggregate supply. Then prices increase. All this is at point B. So now to ensure that prices remain low, then it means one, aggregate supply increases when aggregate demand increases when aggregate supply increases as well. So what is the effect of that? If aggregate demand increases when aggregate supply increases, then you will see that prices will decrease. But now what happens to quantity? So quantity will increase. So you see there that now because we had a shift in aggregate demand, shifted from D to D1, and then supply shifted from S to S1, then when they both shifted, then we went back to the decrease in price there. So you find that now when aggregate demand and aggregate supply are equal again, then we're going to have a decrease in prices. So with that, then it means the government will always be sure that inflation will remain intact.